Welcome to the Collector's Archive. Interface access loading. File Jamie from Transformers, the show.
Good evening, Jamie. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks. It's nice to be here. It's nice to
Nope.
be on another show.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on and having a chat with us. You know, for well, a lot of people probably know who you are anyway, but for those who may not do, or if you want to just refresh people's memory, do you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of information about yourself, you know, where you're from, and then also bring it round to tell us a bit about what your, well, not that they'll need telling, but what your current collecting focus is.
Yeah, basically, I'm Jamie from Transformers the Show. That's like a bunch of lads where we do a sort of like YouTube show discussing the latest news and trends in Transformers, and basically just talking a lot of pish a lot of the time. Not, just chatting away. It's like a pub conversation, but maybe a slightly worse and less highbrow. But basically, that's it. We're also quite active in the Transformers show Facebook forum and Transformers UK forum, which is where we all met. And we met in, I think, through that, and also the bigger event of TF Nation, which was like the biggest sort of like Transformers sort of gathering in Europe. And that was an immense thing to be part of. So to me, it was like, I don't know, it's almost like, dipping your toe into the community and then just being sucked in, and then, and seeing this very vibrant, rich, diverse bunch of Transformer lunatics who love collecting, and are really a nice bunch of people, mostly.
Yeah. And then I take it then, from what we can see behind you, then your current collecting focus then is firmly in the realm of Transformers.
Yes, I would say I was doing catch up. I would say because I came in about 2018,
right,
when I started to really collect again. Well, I say again. I mean, the first time I did was a child, so I was like I stopped as a child. And then I started again as an adult. I'm well into my 40s. Disposable income. And I figured this is a lot better than a lot of the other options, which are a bit more risky for you to have your midlife crisis on.
Yeah.
So Transformers was definitely a win for me. And, and it's something I guess I missed out, because as a child, you couldn't get what you always wanted. But as an adult, you can go, I'll have that, and I'll have that. And I think I did that a little bit too much. And I've got this sort of massive, mostly Chug collection. I have got some de facto Chug, which are Mastermind creations, but I've branched out. But mostly it's, to suit my collection, what I kind of like. And that's firmly in the sort of G1 realms of Transformers.
Right. So what I'm going to say then now is then, off the back of that then, so what, I don't know if you want to elaborate a bit more, but what would you say shapes you're collecting at the moment then? What's, like the motivations behind it, and do you have, is there actually an end game or a goal to it, to your collecting?
I would think if I was to answer that, I'd probably lie and say there was end goals and there was like a madness behind it. But to be quite honest, I think it's quite random.
Right.
I mean, I'm into. I like sports. I like watching sports. I went to like Rugby World Cup in Japan. I like my computer games. I collect. I've got massive collection of computer games. I think I've got all the latest consoles just now. And I think with Transformers, that's pretty much. I like what I like, and if I don't like it, I don't tend to get it. And it's been very rare that I bought something and then went, "Oh, this is not very good at all."
Right.
And I think sometimes where I've not went in to buy something, I've kind of regretted it. But in saying that, it's a lot of stuff I won't get in the Chug line, like the gaming edition, which is the latest thing from Hasbro. I just don't fancy that. Don't have a connection. But as I said before, I think when I first went in 2018, I went in and got very much the Titans Returns and Combiner War stuff. I was kind of backtracking. And I'm quite happy with what I've got, and I feel like I'm almost in a trap now where I'm buying the latest stuff, like the legacy stuff, from and the Siege and the Airfries, because it's just superb, like mini masterpieces, which I think we were the first ones to really start to coin in our show, and it's kind of it's about trying to control myself from spending too much on this sort of like plastic articulated models, which are basically Transformer toys.
Yeah.
You know, and enjoy it, because it's about taking your time to enjoy it. It's like a fine glass of wine, you know. You don't want to gallop it down. Some people do, you know, but some people want to savor it, you know. And I think that sometimes, I think the important thing about your collection is you want to enjoy it, you want to savor it, and that's have it. I mean, I don't have it really displayed in any order. I kind of rotate. I have a lot of stuff in storage, or rotate around. But most of my Transformer collection is about, I can grab it with my hands and I can use it for my photography. It's about a means to an end. Less about the display and more about my photography, which I really quite enjoy.
Right. So the collection that you have at the moment, then, what's new in your collection? Then, additionally to that, what's next on your radar? Whoa! Hold your horses! Hold your horses! So what's new in your collection? What's next on your radar? Have you got like any current orders or pre-orders? And then, elaborating on that, is there something that you'd like to see made available that isn't currently available?
Well, my latest would be, God, I picked him up now, and I hope I say the right name, is Snarl. And it took a couple of attempts, because there was a lot of defects. Hasbro's quality control is not the best. There was always marks in the face, but I've eventually got one of them, which is ideal. And it's good for me, because obviously with photography, it even focuses more. But I also think I'm the only person in my age group who doesn't need glasses yet. So maybe I'm kind of hoping as I get older, I'll eventually need glasses and I won't be able to spot these imperfections so much. But just now they're like clear to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's also my science background, you know, using down a microscope, but I'm quite focused on small, intricate details. But I think sometimes that's the negative side of photography, is I tend to be quite, you know, focused on, you know, these. I mean, I do think at 55 quid, we should be expecting better. And I think sometimes it's almost like it's a sort of like savior complex, where we see Hasbro as a savior and we're lucky to have any scraps. And I think we should lose that mentality. We are more like customers, and Hasbro should be producing better, like other companies as well. Just because it owns the IP doesn't mean we should let it slacking off with QC problems. But I mean, as far as what I hope to get in my collection, well, I pre-ordered basically all the legacy stuff. If it has a G1 connection, I pre-ordered it. If it has aesthetics of G1, that means like the Prime figures they're releasing, but deciding to give them a nose, I've kind of pre-ordered it. You know, the stuff I tend to stick away from, I said before, is like the gaming edition, stuff like that. And I think the thing is with Hasbro Pulse, you can pre-order and then cancel if you change your mind. So I would always recommend pre-ordering first and then think about it. Because the time you think about it, you know, it's too late. Now, I'm a bit different in the sense I will pre-order from Hasbro Pulse, but I tend to get 2 copies sometimes, you know, especially like the Dinobots. So I'll also pre-order from places like In Demand Toys, because without this sort of independence out there, there would be no Hasbro Pulse. There would be no substantial collectors base in the Transformers fandom in the UK. And it's because of the independence. So, you know, I do my best to support them. So like for like, you know, ratio of 1-to-1, or I try my best anyway. You know, and I tend to get G.I. Joe figures as well, and I tend to get that from places like In Demand Toys. Well, I did until Hasbro decided to stop supplying the UK retailers with UK stock, meaning they had to go and get import stuff, making it a lot bit harder for them, which I think, you know, is not exactly a good policy to have, because, you know, independence is the reason you've got a business.
That's the situation that's got my arse hair up, if I'm honest, because I also, I mean, my Transformer collection's pretty much complete. I just buy now to replace or upgrade. So I wouldn't really consider myself as an active collector if you in the strictest sense. But I do have a small sideline in Black Series and Classified, G.I. Joe Classified. Now, I mean, it's partly my fault, but I'll elaborate. I I'd completely forgot about the pre-order going up for Eels on Hasbro Pulse. And when I finally remembered, it was the same day that it was released, but I was just a few hours too late and it had sold out. And I was absolutely fuming. I was raging because, again, on the site, on Hasbro Pulse, it was saying 3 per customer. And it's like, fuckers, I'm sorry to swear, but it's like that I've got this thing with... I get and I understand people army build and they like multiples, but I don't like this attitude that some collectors have where they just go in ham-fisted and they buy multiples. Because I know damn well that there'll be people out there that's got 2 or 3 different Pulse accounts under different email addresses, and they'll have gone in and just bought them. And it's like, come on, let people wet the beak first. I mean, I have a few multiples on Stormtroopers. I like Stormtroopers. I'm a sucker for them. But what I do is when it first comes out, I'll order 1, or maybe at a push I'll order 2. But then what I'll do is I'll then wait for the next wave of the next release. So because they always go out of stock and then they bring them back into stock again. So then when they bring them back into stock the second time, I'll maybe pick up another 1 or another 2. And I'll do it that way, so I'll build it up gradually, rather than going in ham-fisted and just saying, right, no, all this is mine. I don't care about anyone else. I'm having them. I want them, kind of thing. And it just really irritates me because it's that particular side of the collecting community that I really dislike. That selfish kind of like single-mindedness that, only they matter, and no one else does. Maybe I mean,
we've discussed this in like Transformers the show quite a bit, and I think with like, for example, with Sharkticons, I remember I ordered my 2 from Hasbro Pulse, and you ordered 2, and I ordered my 2 from In Demand Toys, and I ordered my 2 from Kapow, Toys, and so I had 6, and the idea was I was going to cancel the sort of like the Hasbro Pulse one, but obviously the all dates came in at the exact same time because you didn't know which was going to come first, and you're kind of keen to review or to be the first one to get it because you got to do your photography, and I've got hypertensive fingers, so for me transforming is very painful. I transformed Unicron recently and I've wrecked my hands, so so I need to like get physio done on them. It will take maybe about 2 weeks before I can properly transform something again. So for me it makes a lot of sense. If it's a transformer, it's hard to transform, it's got a lot of panels, so it's a lot of pressure on the hands, and I'll tend to get 2. If it's an easy one like Starsaber, ironically, it's quite an easy transformer to, I don't need to worry about that, But with the Sharkticons, I remember waiting until the waves hit the shop, and then you could go to the shop and you can pick one and stuff like that. So I have no problem with people if they're spreading it out. Because if you're getting it from different businesses, you're supporting that and you're building up, your points. And I think a lot of businesses, like In Demand, will go down to you could only get 1, or you could only get 2, and they'll know you, who you are. You've dealt with them for years, so that's quite a good thing. And you're supporting them, and they're happy to deal with you because there's a lot of people it gives them hassle. And and I think when you're like Smith Toys, or like retail, I think that's when the trouble happens, when it's something that's very cheap and someone will go in, buy loads, and then they'll start selling it and moving it on. If you're buying loads because it's cheap but you're planning to keep it, then I think, well, fair on to you, because there's so many people that buy this stuff and then they'll pass it on, or they'll say, oh, I don't really want this anymore, and it's still mint in box. And I'm like one of these hoarders. I don't know if I'm the best person to ever discuss this, but I kind of buy it and I'll keep it forever, and I'm very unlikely to sell it.
I mean, it's like the Eels. I saw that later that same day. I saw them on eBay. Like the pre-orders going up on eBay. And they'd added an extra 15-20 quid to the price, and I just thought, I just detest those kind of people. It's just like, it's
basically scalpers you're talking
about. It is.
Because they're not buying it for their own collections. That's not army builders. That is something different. Army builders, they tend to be quite they're quite astute. You know, they tend to be like they'll get in 4s or maybe they'll get A's, and it's basically all they sort of like focus on. You know, and they're very rare and well in between. It's the scalpers. They're the ones who are buying loads from different places and shutting people down. They'll be using computer programs so they could be buying the same thing and they'll be duplicating on the other window what they're doing.
Yeah,
you know, and it's very well organized. They're quite astute and they know where they're selling to.
You
know, where army builders that might be the easy target, but they're the small fish really. They've basically done nothing, and they're the guys who might end up giving you one because you know they think I've actually got a spare one. Do you want this? Because I've seen that help. I've been helped out in the GI Joe community like that. You know, I've missed out in some figures, and because they've bought duplicates or one to keep in a, because the QC issues are so pish. But sometimes some people buy two because if they only bought one and they try to return it, they can't get a replacement because it's sold out. So you got lots of people who will buy two products. And you know, and then we'll choose which one they want to keep. And sometimes they'll either return it to Hasbro Pulse or they bought it from an independent. They'll be putting it up for sale. You know, and you know, and you can't blame people for that because they want their collection to be the best it can be.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, I have a bit of a. I don't know. I don't know if it's an odd opinion about that. What I don't know, but I mean, I just kind of, when it comes to stuff like the Black Series and Classified and things like that, the kind of thing, I know collectors like them, but ultimately they're a mass-produced toy. I'm sure when Hasbro are producing these, they're not producing them for the collectors. They've probably got the collector in mind, but they're not producing them for the collector. They're mass-producing them as toys to sell. You know, it's like your Studio Series Snarl there. Hasbro's producing a toy to sell. Yeah, the fact that collectors are jumping on and buying them is almost like a fringe benefit, I would say. You know, it's so. But then I also flip then and think, well, I couldn't see many people buying a Black Series or a Classified for the kid to play with. You know, so
I think with Hasbro, I think when they're producing this toy, I think some of the money men I might be thinking they're producing mass production toy just to be released to the masses. And the people working in the factories might be thinking that, and the people who own the factories might be thinking that. But I think the engineers and the designers are pretty much got it in for the collectors and what the collectors want, because the collectors are the ones who'll be reviewing it, advertising it, talking about it, and driving the sales. And I think in some cases it'll be for other collectors in other countries, and other countries like Asia would be going mad for something like this. And I think, you know, in many respects, it's almost like it's not a toy because that it's not getting really widely produced yet as a toy, because, you know, Toys R Us went under, Hasbro's trying to do deals with Smiths, and I think sometimes they've got overstock. But I think what always has in their mind just now is because of the designers and engineers are wanting the toys that we want because we're that similar age. So it's maybe a happy coincidence, a happy benefit. But, you know,
maybe there's a bit of both.
One thing I wish they would release or do is a proper gold, well, not gold, Photobots. I would love them to do the Photobots as a box set, maybe even as a Hasbro HasLab exclusive.
So, but in what way would you like them to still retain the pull back and go feature, or would you like them to just be an actual...
updated? Updated, ankle tilts, waist swivel, you name it. You know, I would love to have hands open and close. You know, and the rest of this paneling stuff. I know paneling's quite hip in that, but you know, it's quite annoying when you're transforming. But yeah, I'd like the Photobots. Right.
Do you have a particular favourite Throttlebot?
Well, we've already got him in Goldbug. I quite like Chase. You know, but I would just like the entire team.
I only had one Throttlebot as a kid because that were pretty. I think not long after the movie came out, probably maybe mid to back end of '87, I started moving out of it, because I mean I was already I was in the second year of high school by then.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, the self pressure and peer pressure were on you to move on from such things, But I did have, it was Freeway that I had. But I can't remember where he came from, whether who bought him or what. But I don't have him anymore, but I still have the decoy because he came with the Hound decoy.
Yeah.
And I still have that, but I don't have Freeway anymore. And it were all right, but even back in the day, I thought it wasn't a great Transformer, because it was just like,
I fell in love with them because of the Rebirth cartoon.
Right.
When you first sort of got to see them in animation, and then obviously they had some epic stories in the Transformer UK comics.
Yeah.
So it's, my love is less to do with the toys, although it's not always the case, because obviously Sludge and I think Thundercracker and Skywalker obviously meant a lot to me, and I even had the original G1 first, Metroplex and Scorponok, but also because of the stories that are told, the stories which just adds that magic to the character, sets your imagination on fire. And that's why I would like the Autobots, because I don't think there's been justice done for the Autobots yet, and I think most Transformers now, we've had nearly every interpretation, and we've had it reimagined again and again. But I think with the Autobots, we've only had individuals now and again, like Chase or Goldberg, being picked.
Yeah, well,
And
X-Transbots are doing them, aren't they? In the Masterpiece Throttlebots.
Oh, for party out of my league.
Right, yeah. I've got, I think I've got one on pre-order. It's the, I forget his name, but it's the RS200, the Ford Escort RS200, the white one. I can never remember his name.
Oh, I would have to look up in Wikipedia, because I thought you just mentioned his name like 5 minutes
No,
ago.
Freeway was the blue Corvette.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. There was a white one. It was an Escort RS200, but I can't remember his name. But I'm only getting it because I like the car. I like the RS200 car.
Searchlight.
That's it. Searchlight. Right.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be an easy question, and I think I suspect we already know the answer to that. But what are you digging on at the moment? What's the thing that you keep picking up and you can't put down?
I would say Dinobots.
Right.
I would say Hot Rod. I would say the Rebirth figures and Transformers the movie figures.
Right.
I would say obviously Dinobots are something I always seem to. I just love the size of them, big and chunky, and they're mean spirited like me. Identify with them. To be honest, it's like, I was just been cleaning my Transformers this week, so it's a hard one to tell, because I've been literally picking them all up and dusting them.
Right.
So it's actually quite a hard one to tell. But I think the thing that always sort of makes me smile is the Dinobots and Hot Rod.
Right. Yeah.
And they bring a sort of like a smile to me, and I quite like Sludge. Sludge is a figure I quite like. I love taking photographs of Sludge.
Yeah.
And I think if I look at Instagram, I think if I was more intelligent, I would pick Transformers which are more widely known or liked to maybe take photos of. But I tend to just take the photos of the ones that capture my imagination at the time. And
well, I think that's all you can do. I think if you go down that avenue of trying to people please, then I think you'll lose your passion for it. I learned quite early on to just photograph and post what I enjoy, and if people come along for the ride with it, they come along for the ride with it, But I can see that. Yeah.
So
I can
that's
see that,
like a photo I've done of Sludge.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what I enjoy, and and to me that's like one of my sort of favorite photos. And I do different styles, but and I think if I was, like you said, that if you're trying to please the masses, then you quickly stop enjoying what you're doing.
So this next question, then, I changed it from what I used to ask it. So now I label this now as your rescue item. So there's a disaster at your home. Everything of worth or meaning is safe. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And things like that. So you can dive back in the house and save one piece from your collection. What's it going to be?
I would take Unicron and then throw it back into the fire.
Right.
You know, to make a statement.
Yeah. Yeah. Which Unicron is it you've got?
The HasLab one.
Ooh,
You
right.
know, so I'd be saying, you don't have power over me anymore. And I'd throw it back in, you know.
Right.
Because
Right.
it really wrecks my hands transforming that back into planet mode. It's
Yeah.
It's like tough. Transformed it
Yeah.
maybe about 6 times now. Well, 5 times.
Right.
It's going to be the 6th time I transform it back into robot. Probably
Right.
after TFN.
It's a big impressive piece, but it's it didn't do it for me. Well, one thing, it was the price. I there's no way I was going to pay that for a Transformer. But it's with my collection being mainly masterpiece focused or third party masterpiece, it didn't fit in aesthetic wise. It seems to be more of a chug kind of Unicron. You know, like it seems to fit in more with that line of figures rather than. So I went down the Studio Cell Unicron, third party one.
That's supposed to be a nightmare to transform as well.
I've transformed it twice, and I can't be bothered again. It's not happening again. But to be fair, when I do display my stuff, it's always in robot mode. I very rarely display it in alt mode, you know, because it's all about the robots, you know.
Well, I'll have to display it in robot mode because the planet size is just too damn big, too much of a circumference. It's just no way I could have it.
Yeah. Is it? But yeah, that's on their own with that one. So we know we can see with the Transformers and stuff behind you there, Jamie. What do you have any interests? You know, other interests outside your core collecting focus? You know, like are there any other toy lines or franchises that you collect or follow?
G.I. Joe,
right,
and Dungeons and Dragons based on the cartoon.
Right.
And I also got some of the monster figures from the latest movie, but to fit in with the cartoon figures.
Right.
And which I would say was basically the sort of 3 best cartoons I kind of liked at the time was Transformers, G.I. Joe, Action Force, and Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. So, any particular favourites on the G.I. Joe line? I mean, I take it it's the classified stuff, is it, or do you get the retro ones as well?
It's the classified stuff.
Right.
I did collect some of the retro stuff, and I've got some of the early retro stuff that they produced. But then they decided to go back to O-rings.
Right.
And the figures aesthetic went back to as if it was the retro figure instead of an updated retro. I liked the updated retro, but as soon as they went back to the old aesthetic. Old retro, I went, not this piss. I don't want to. I'm feeling like I'm paying for a downgrade. And then obviously the HasLab thing was that get launched, but it had the old retro figures as well. Because if they'd kept the updated retro, I would have bought that.
Right.
So that put me right off. You know, but I like the classified series apart from Flint, who's got Lieutenant Falcon, who's got a face like a Thunderbird puppet.
Right.
But everything else, you know, I pretty much love about the sort of G.I. Joe classified line.
Right. So staying on that subject then about, you know, you mentioned about cartoons and that, you know, influencing with the classified and that. What are you watching then as a kid? You know, what cartoons are you watching? Are you reading any comics? You know, the TV shows, movies, music? You know, what's going off for Jamie as a kid? You know, when he's growing up.
Oh, I think when the comics, you had Transformers comics, you had the Madball comics, you had the real Ghostbuster comics, you know, cartoons. I mean, obviously, you had the plethora of Marvel and DC comics, you know, which I say they're more like for the common reader, you know, where like Transformers and that was for the more sort of higher finesse type reader, you know. Especially when you look at the early Transformer comics, they're very word heavy. So I don't think they had a clue what they were doing. They were trying to build a sort of like a whole backstory and history and educate the reader. But the words they were using were definitely not geared towards children, you know, very quick adult pace. So, but cartoon wise, you had Jason the Wheeled Warriors, Pole Position.
Yeah.
Ulysses, obviously the Transformer cartoons. You had the GoBots, which weren't that good. You had He-Man, Masters of the Universe, again, not that good, but you enjoyed it as a kid. You had obviously She-Ra as well. So that was just like Exo Squad was one of my favorites as a kid. I would have
Right.
loved that as a toy line,
Yeah.
I mean, Jason the Wheeled Warriors I would love as a toy line as well. But there's Blackwater, I think that's what it was called. You had Brave Star, you had Centurions, Mask. I didn't mind too much, but when it came to stuff opening up and flying, I kind of preferred Transformers. But yeah, and then as you hit the sort of late 80s into the 90s, you got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out and stuff like that. I did like Inhumanoids,
Right.
that was a bit adult as well. But I do think we were spoiled. Seven Cities of Gold,
Yeah.
I think the variation in the cartoons that we had was amazing.
Yeah, so there was some good stuff on. I mean, I remember watching all, most of the ones that you mentioned there. The things like the Transformers and He-Man. I didn't watch She-Ra. She-Ra for girls. It wasn't for boys when I was a kid.
I like She-Ra. I didn't care. I like Care Bears and My Little Pony, no, but Care Bears. Care Bears worked. You can't go wrong with bears.
No, where and when I grew up, it was like, no, you'd have got a kick in, if you'd have come into school and said that you'd just been watching
I
Care
got the
Bears
stick
or
album.
She-Ra.
I grew up in Glasgow. I went into a housing estate with 2 toy poodles. Trust me, it toughened you up. You avoided the person who collected Care Bears.
But yeah, Mysterious Cities of Gold, all those. I never watched Mask. Mask never crossed.
Same here.
Never watched that. Never watched. I mean, I probably saw the odd episode, but I wasn't one for Centurions either.
I've got vintage Visionary figures which I collect, and I like that. And I've nearly collected them all, apart from I've forgotten the name of the vehicle. It's the Darkwing Lord's vehicle, which I still need to get.
Right.
And the lizard guy, and I've forgotten his name. But yeah, I love the Visionary cartoon, even though it was short-lived. I think I must have watched the original 3 cartoons that put together as a Visionary movie to death.
Right. Yeah, I never saw that. I mean, I was aware that, because Visionaries came into Transformer comic, but I never used to read the backup strips when I used to get the Transformer comic. It was just the Transformer stories. Maybe earlier on, I'd do stuff like Matt the Cat and things like that. But the later on things like that, Visions and stuff. No, I never read those. Same with the Zoids comics. I never used to read the Spider-Man or the Star Wars or whatever it was. Fantastic Four that were in there.
Yeah,
the backup strips. It was just I'm reading about the Zoids and that's it, kind of thing. And when I finished them, then I'd just pick up and read my Beanos. They were a big. They were all on my bedside table. Beano. So we've ascertained what you're watching and reading and things like that as a kid. Then, so what you're playing with toys and games wise, and what did you have any particular favourites?
Actual playing as a kid with toys.
Yeah.
Did I have any favourites? Well, I think my favourites is always going to be Transformers.
Right.
I used to do epic battles with Transformers as a kid.
Yeah.
And you'd have your friends come around as well, and you transform the things. And I look back now, and I think the transformations must have been much simpler, or we were just very fast. Because you can imagine now some transformations can take 20 minutes or 10 minutes. In a game, the time you did that, the kids would be falling asleep and bored. So the simple nature or our speed must have been, a different level, which I can't actually remember. But I just remember just enjoying that,
Yeah.
And I think the thing, when you also had your He-Man figures and your Star Wars figures, and that was the things you had your battles with.
Yeah.
And you used to get these tiny toy soldiers, which should be 2 inches or 1 inch. And you could, but they would all be green or blue and yellow, and you could be playing outside with them as well. So I think as a kid we were spoiled really for the sort of toys that we could have or did have. I think the fancier toys were stuff like Bravestar and Thundercats and Centurions. You know, they were rare to get. They seem to be a bit bigger as well.
Yeah.
And you know, and I remember as a young kid, you know, it seemed to be the rich kids that would have something like that because they could have all the toys they wanted. Whereas me, you know, you had to focus on something that was Transformers. You know, I know your family knew you liked Transformers, so they would get you Transformers.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, there was always that one kid at school or who lived on your street that, you know, had all the good stuff or the big thing, you know, that had come out that year kind of thing. But it's interesting, you're the first person to mention them, and I've been waiting for someone to mention them because it's something I remember from early childhood, and that is the small toy plastic soldiers. You know, I used to play hours with those kind of things. We used to have these it were either reed or maybe bamboo kind of like mats that you'd roll up, and I'd roll those out and you know, you'd have the green ones at one side and the grey ones at the other side, and you'll have like battles with them on this like, you know, this roll out mat kind of thing. You know, and you'd sometimes, you know, you get your soldiers, and in some packs they might have like a small tank with it or a jeep or something as well, and then like a little moulded sandbag or something that you could hide them behind.
Oh, I remember them. Yeah.
And
a wee flag or something like a flag.
Yes. Flag. Yeah. But then also there'd be the other things like the small polystyrene planes with a little blue propeller at the front.
Yeah.
Like 10p or something from the shop, you know, and you'd slide the wings through, trying not to snap it as you're sliding them through and that.
And you could fly them.
yeah. You know, it's all this stuff that, you know, I suppose kids nowadays, they've just missed out on, you know. It's...
Well, I think a lot of toys, you could use your imagination. I think with many kids, you would have GoBots, Transformers, and Star Wars in the same battle.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was the thing about kids, you know, they use the imagination to power things, you know. It's like a test, we say, if you gave a kid a paper clip, they could probably think, a young kid a paper clip, they could probably think about 40 uses of that paper clip and what they could use it for. But the time you become an adult, suddenly you're down to 4 or 5 uses for it. You know, we've lost that innovation, we've lost that imagination of what this thing could be or what it could represent in the mind's eye.
Yeah, no, definitely. So staying on the subject of toys then, do you have a particular standout memory with regards a toy that you may have got on holiday or for your birthday or Christmas?
I think with me, the standout memory was getting Scorponok. It transformed into a massive scorpion, and it's wonderful deep purple and bright green and orange, you know, colours. And 3 G.I. Joe figures, 2 Snake Eyes figures, which were commandos to me because I didn't really know who Snake Eyes were, and Flint, which was a green beret, you know, and they were fighting Scorponok, and that's like sort of a standout memory, sort of playing with that, you know, Action Force versus a Transformer, you know, and I remember the Snake Eyes because you had the 2 dogs, well, because I had 2 of them, so I had 2 dogs as well. The snarly teeth and that, and I've got that. I actually went and bought that figure from eBay, this sort of snarling dog to match my sort of virtual Snake Eyes, which I picked up. You know, because I sort of just, I don't know. It's like I said, it's like, you know, something just grabs your attention or your imagination, and I just wanted that, you know.
Yeah. No, it's a great figure, Scorponok. It's one that I never had, but I had a nephew that got it for Christmas. And, you know, I can remember thinking at the time, you know, if I was still playing with Transformers, you know, that would have been, you know, that would have been in my collection. Would that have been there? Cause it was a great looking toy. You know, I just now as an adult collector looking at it, it's like, could you imagine how much, you know, how even more awesome it'd be if it was like the same size as Fort Max, you know? It'd be one hell of a toy, you know. But yeah. So, inevitably, you know, we grow up and we move on, but do you have any recollections or memories of, you know, because some people I've spoken to, they didn't stop. it's like, you know, they did carry on getting stuff just
Yeah.
all the way through. But was that like that for you, or did you find yourself? Was there a time when you stopped? And can you recall a last toy, if maybe even not so much the last one, but can you remind, you know, a memory of something that you got towards the back end before you moved on?
I think it was the Micromasters, and
Right.
and I've collected all the G1 Micromasters again, which were released in the UK and Europe. So like the combiners I don't have. I have maybe a couple of them, but I don't have that completed. Or the special sort of Conbays that came out in Japan. But all the stuff that was UK and USA released, I've completed that. And they were the last ones I remember really getting and physically playing with, and some of the Pretenders.
Right.
You know, so, and I've collected sort of G1 Pretenders. There's still to get Starscream.
Right.
But you know, but yes, so they were in the back of my mind, and that's probably why I went on a mission to get there. And I was quite lucky because that was in 2018, but at that point, even the Micromasters were still cheap, and it was almost by the time I got my last piece, I think the prices just jumped.
Right.
You know, and I could see that, and I was just thinking, it's a shame in a way, because there's going to be other people who are my age, who are thinking I could go and get this stuff now, and then that stuff is so expensive. You know, and they'll be missing out because of that, and it's getting sold by people who don't have that attachment anymore, which is not always the case, because some of the stuff I bought they could have sold it for more, and they gave it to me at a good price because they know I loved it, and they obviously loved it as well because they kept good care of it. You know, I think sometimes I could sound a bit too flippant, and I don't mean it. You know, who I bought these figures from. But I sometimes feel like, wow, the prices have really jumped, and that's a pity.
So with that in mind, then, when did collecting become a thing for you? Then, you know, were there particular circumstances that surrounded you getting back into the hobby? You know, if you want to call it a hobby, and you know, was there one particular figure that did it for you?
I think it's funny because when I look back at it, the sort of reasons seem to change. I think as time goes on, the reason seems to change, and I think a lot of it is more down to chance. I was playing a lot of computer games,
right?
And I had a leg injury, so I was like in bed rest for 2 years because I had like a leg infection and stuff like that, and that was so annoying. So I was playing a lot of computer games, and I kind of had my fill of that, and I wanted to just. It's not like I planned to go into Transformer collecting. I saw Fortress Maximus for sale in Tesco for something like 50 quid, 50 or 70 quid or something like that, between 50 and 70 quid. And I remember saying to Maylin, oh, I would love that because I never had that as a G1 toy. And I loved it from the Rebirth cartoon. And I just thought, you know what would be cool? I've got room in the bedroom to put that. I know, oh my God, he's put it in bed. But you know, bedroom's quite big. I could put it there. You know, Maylin wouldn't mind. It would only be one. You know, and then I got Fortress Maximus, and I thought, you know, it'd be a sin not to get the rest of the characters from the Rebirth. And you start looking online, and you start thinking, these masterpiece figures. Wow, they looked a bit false to me and a bit too clean. But then I looked at the Chug collectors, and I quite liked it, a bit more rough and tumble, and they also were quite cheap. So I thought if I broke them or messed them up somehow, because I'm all, you know, hands and fingers, I'm not, you know, I wouldn't be too bad.
Right.
And, you know, and Fortress Maximus, I looked at him and he's had sad eyes, and I thought I need to buy more. I need to get him company. And the more Transformers I bought, the more the eyes of Maylin started to become dead inside. She gave up all hope. But you know, I was just having fun, and I think I went through a mad rush of almost buying everything I could get. You know, and it kind of worked because I was going to like Japan for the Rugby World Cup, but then lockdown we came into the COVID era, lockdown, so I wasn't going to go on holiday, or I wasn't going to go to places I couldn't go out drinking as well. So it was more like, oh, my Transformer budget's increased,
right?
You know, oh damn, you know, and you know, so I could end up buying more what I wanted.
Right. what do you enjoy most about collecting?
I enjoy the photography aspect the most.
Right.
I think I think when I display them, apart from like the odd ones, the Dinobots, and that gives you a cheeky smile.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a shame to have them not be used. You know, but it doesn't mean you get to use them all the time. You might only use them once that year.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a conveyor belt, especially as your collection can be quite large. But I like the fact of being able to pick them up and just sort of play around with them as well. And then I think that's the thing. I think there's no right or wrong answer, because I think you could be displaying them, photography,
Yeah.
just to look at them or hold them, have them in your box under a bed, and you pull it out just to look at it. I think, you know, as long as it's giving joy to you, and with me, I think any of these options give me joy in some way, because I'm in that sort of situation. And obviously I love talking and meeting people about Transformers, because you also tend to find you also have a lot in common as well.
Yes. So we know what you like most about them. So I'm going to ask you then, Jamie, what do you dislike most about collecting?
I think the cost. I think there's is definitely a heavy cost to it. And I think in some cases, you know, even though I like to pretend I've got control, you know, and I do a spreadsheet and I like to watch what I spend, I do feel almost trapped into what I'm collecting, and I want to get the updated model. And I, you know, apart from obvious lines I don't like the Game editions, you know, I'm tempted to test stuff like the Prime stuff, which I never watched as a kid or have any association with, because it's got a G1 aesthetic. It hooked me in. And I'm almost secretly hoping that in some way that they start to move on away from the G1 aesthetic, where it doesn't interest me anymore, and I can say I'm happy with what I've got, and they bring out the odd token characters to keep people like me chugging along. You know.
So what? Sorry, I'm going to interrupt there and just add this part to that. Do you think, or could you envision a time where you would stop collecting?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that quite a bit. I mean, I could stop collecting in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and make up my mind and just go cold turkey, because that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think, you know.
But would you do that as it is? You know, like say like go cold turkey, or would you kind of like think, right, okay, well, I'm going to make this my jumping off point, if you will?
No, because I would want it to be natural. I would want it to. I don't want it to be forced. I would go cold turkey in the sense I'm not getting anything else, but what I've got, I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be saying I need to go cold turkey, and then what some people do, they have a clean sweep and they want to sell everything. You know, because I put too much damn effort into getting that stuff. You know, you go up to the loft before I would ever sell it. You know, I'd find it in the back garden first. No one's getting this stuff. Sorry, you know, it's going into my coffin to get cremated with me. But toxic fumes into the atmosphere, and you can choke on it. I would be a sort of natural progression, and I think it's when I think I've had enough, because it's still a bit enjoying it. And just because I'm not buying any more doesn't mean I won't stop doing the photography. Doesn't mean I won't stop interacting with the Transformers and spreading the news, and you know, and you're getting secondary enjoyment from someone else who's got a new toy and opening up and reviewing and talking about it. I mean, I think there's so much to the sort of Transformers collecting, and they still got your media, you know, the comics, new comics that may come out, you know, and it's stuff to look forward to. You know, I might not like the latest stuff that comes out, but I think it's important because it's bringing new generations people into the franchise.
Yes.
You know, and not everything has to be for me or about me, but it doesn't mean that I still don't. I have the right to say that it's pish, or it could be better because of this and that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think. I think naysayers are important, because I think to appreciate something, you've got to have, you know, at least you know, a comparison, you know, a conflict, or you end up just appreciating something that's worse and worse, and you want the passionate people. I mean, they might get slated, you know, but I think it's the passionate people who keep franchises alive when everyone else has lost interest.
Yeah. So, Jamie, if you could, this next question, there's two parts to this question. They may end up being the same answer, but you know, we'll see how we get on with them. this might be a bit odd for you as well, because you like you say, you got back into it in 2018. But if you could go back to your younger self when you started collecting, would there be any advice that you give to yourself as you're starting out?
To my younger self back in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't buy so many of the Titan Return figures and Power of the Primes, because we're going to have updated versions which are much better.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that would be quite easy advice. You know, don't kill yourself going after these sort of scalped figures
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is, if it is any different, which I assume it probably is going to be from what you've said there, what advice would you give to a collector that's just starting out now? You know, someone who's coming into it new and they're just starting out. What advice would you give them?
If they're my age group.
No, any age group. You know, any age group. They've decided to start collecting Transformers, or not even just Transformers, but they've decided to start collecting. You know, what advice would you give them?
Don't buy too much.
Mm.
The money you spend, it's money you're going to lose. Don't think it's money you're going to make a profit from. If you go, some people go in there to buy that. I don't mind. You can do that if you want, but I don't think it's the way to think. You don't need to get them all. It's not like Pokemon. Buy what you want, but savor it and appreciate what you've got. And don't worry if you've missed out on something, because there's always going to be something new coming around the corner which you want as well, and that money could be used for that.
Yeah.
You know. And make sure you're buying it for you. You're not buying it because it's a fad, and sometimes I worry you're buying it because your social media is encouraging you to post that photo or to talk about it, but you've got it. You know, and I think, to be honest with a lot of people I see, they buy it, they're quite smart. I think because they've probably been like me and got lots of stuff and realised, or like yourself when you described, you got your figure which made you realise, no, I don't actually really want this, and then caused you to sell quite a bulk of stuff you realised wasn't for you. You know, and I think a lot of people have learned that lesson. So hopefully someone new try to tell them that. Try to give them your experience of, you know, just, you don't need to get them all.
So we're almost at end now, Jamie, but I just want to go back to the collecting community as a whole, and like a similar question to what I asked earlier on. It's like, what aspects of the collecting community do you like and dislike?
I like about the collecting community is it's quite different. They're very different from each other. You're meeting people from different walks of life, different countries, different age groups, and sometimes you don't even know it. You know, you're speaking a common language. You're speaking the language of the love of Transformers, and I think that's great. And I think that is something you don't appreciate, because I think when you come to other sort of fandoms, that sometimes it can be trapped in certain niches. It can be trapped in certain epochs, you know, and in certain countries. Where with Transformers, it's quite universal. You've got your Diaclone people in China, Japan, America, you know, France, Italy, Netherlands, Germany, the UK, and I think it's just like we're privileged for that. And I think because Transformers never went out the mind's eye, you went from G1, you had the GT comics, you had Beast Wars, you know, which a lot of people don't like, but you had Beast Machines, you had Armada, you know, Energon, you know, it's always been taken away. And then you had the Michael Bay movies, putting it into the sort of popular culture again, where it might have died down, but it's always been there, and you've always got those fans. And the thing is, it's like, no matter if they come in at Energon or Beast Wars or Murder, because they've done such a great job of connecting everything together, you know, and people are just interested because it's the internet and the information they shared. We start to have a love of the different franchises of what came before, what's coming after, and I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's great. You know, and there's so much talented people out there as well. There's so many good communicators and people who have got a drive and passion, who make it a pleasure. It's like in Twitter, There's a good few accounts I follow, and their posts are always Transformer driven, and it's a godsend. It really is, because it's just good, positive stuff, and it's about Transformers, and I love that.
Yeah. And how about dislike? Is the things that you dislike about the collecting community?
I think the things I dislike about the collecting community is, I think in some ways I'm a bit worried about the encouragement of making people constantly buy Transformers. I think I don't think it's planned, but I think it's, like I said, it's accidental, and I wish, and there's nothing much you can do about it apart from try to be a little bit more self-aware. You know, about that. I don't like, obviously, this sort of scalping aspect of the community, or the people who try to justify it, you know, or the people who moan about Hasbro prices, and then they'll get a Hasbro toy and then they'll sell it at their market value. You think, dear God, you're just moaning about it being too expensive. But, you know, but I also think where the transformation breaks down is that sometimes you fall into the social media trap where someone will say something which is not as educated to you know, well, it's very blunt to your sort of better ears, and you know, and you pile on them, and you don't give them a chance, and they're already entrenched, and it's social media. Everything is exaggerated in social media. And it could be an adult attacking some kid who's like 14 who's just made a stupid comment, or maybe not even a stupid comment, a comment any child would make, and they're getting slated for it, and you're just thinking, no, don't do that. You know, and that's a pity, because I don't think if you met those people in a pub or pub conversation they would be like that. I think the social media brings out the worst in people by its very nature. So it's not attack on them, it's attack on the platforms that we use. You know, and it's like and I think that's the trouble. And I think sometimes, you know, there's not enough recognition about how great it is and how different we are. We come from different countries and different backgrounds, and it's like sometimes I think people try to, you know, it's conformity, or you have to be this way or that way, and I do worry about that sometimes. But again, I think that's more of a social media fault, and it's just because, you know, it's through social media, but we talk about Transformers. It's like as I try to say, you know, we see a comment doesn't sound as sweet to so-called educated ears, and we attack people for it, you know, or we label them, or we see patterns where there's no pattern there. But it doesn't help, because you've got some real wankers out there who are right trolls and who attack these people. So it's not like they were born defensive or they were born seeing these patterns. It's because they've had to deal with an onslaught of wankers out there, you know, who have caused this situation. Meaning when the one person who come along and says something very similar, but would actually be open to change or be open to have a discussion, that, you know, piled on or slated on. And then you've obviously got the types of individuals who try to be sly about it, but they're obviously trying to troll the person. You know, it's obvious to see, and that's just a pity. But, you know, I think these things are far and few between. And I think it's like anything, you can find it if you look for it. You know.
Right, well, that's it. We're at the end now. It's this part of the conversation where I'll just hand it back over to you for a moment, and it's just a recap of, you know, just let people know who you are and where they can find you. Not literally, of course.
Well, am I doing it right now? Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I'm Jamie, or Storm on the screen there. I'm from Transformers the Show. You can find me on Transformers the Show forum on Facebook, or Transformers UK forum Facebook. You can find us on the Twitter account, which is at TF Show UK on Twitter, you know, which is Transformers the Show on Twitter. You can also find us on Instagram, which is Storm Toy Photography. Storm Toy Photography, like just one huge word, massive word. Again, there's links on our Twitter page to that. And we're also on YouTube, Transformers the Show on YouTube, where you get to see our wonderful, fantastic, mature discussions on the world of Transformer collecting.
No, good stuff. Good stuff. Right, well, Jamie, just all that's left for me to say is thank you. I appreciate your time and coming on and having a chat with us. I hope you've enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, don't make me look right wing.
Yeah, I'm gonna. The part where you speak, I'm gonna have Deutschland playing quietly in the background.
The Fatherland at night.
Yeah.
With that sort of black and white superimposed the Munich March.
Yeah,
yeah. In the background.
Jamie, it's like, Jamie, are we the baddies?
Yeah.
No, it's all going to be good. I'm actually going to leave that bit in. It's going to be it'll all be good. Don't worry. I can almost certainly guarantee that the only one who will be made to look a prick in the edit will be me.
No.
So, but no, that's great. Is that? Thank you very much indeed, sir. Appreciate your time, and like I say, hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on. So thank you very much for having me, and have a good night.
You too. All the best. Take care.
All the best. Bye.
Interface disengaged. Thank you for accessing the Collector's Archive. To enable return access, please select the like, subscribe, and notification icons. Initiating shutdown now.